Welcome, dear friends of Yavapai, to this illustrious event where we are joined together to discuss solutions to prevent trespassing technologies that, without a doubt, based on solid scientific evidence dating over 80 years, that microwave radiation of all kinds emitting from cell towers, smart meters, single cell antennas, terms we know as 4G, 5G, now 6G, and Wi-Fi are dangerous and hazardous to all living things, the environment, plant, animal life, as well as mankind. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lena Pu. I'm a scientist. I am also a researcher, a mother, and now an activist. And I've been an activist for the last 10 years. And I am here to share with you how I created laws within my own town. We rose above industry and we reached our goals. And I'm here to share with you that there is definitely a silver lining. There is hope. My work in the past involved environmental projects regarding sensitive wildlife habitats, and I used to work for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers as a project manager. I'm very familiar with working with multiple agencies, all the alphabet agencies. Also, I'm very familiar with how projects are created, how it's moved through the government and through the various agencies involved, from the local level to the state to the federal. I also know how projects are funded. I also know how it has to be governed under ordinance and follow certain regulatory authorities at each of those levels, both the local, the state, and the federal. So to give you a little bit of my background, that has led me to this work is that I'm electrically sensitive, and I have been for over 10 years now. And I fought for these past 10 years, everything under the sun, from Wi-Fi in schools, both private and public, California state bills where I live, and local deployments of the 4G, 5G in my own town. And since then, I've also founded several organizations besides the one in my own town, called the Davis Anti-5G Microwave Network, short for DAMN, D-A-M-N. And these last 3 years, I founded a new group, an international group of freedom fighters called the Council for Restorative Justice, CFRJ. And that is the group I am currently working with for the last 3 years in serving notices of liability throughout the world. And we have had successes. However, in this talk, I don't have time to expand on that, but I will focus on the amazing win that happened in my town. I will also be launching, just to give you a little more detail about what I'm currently working on, is also I'm working on healing vibrational tools. And I've just launched my tuning forks under Lena's Fabulous Frequencies. That will be coming up in a couple of months. So I kind of come full circle from working the legal government realm to finding solutions in personal healing through these vibrational tools. So some of the successes I've had with the notice of liabilities is the ability to write affidavits. Okay, because of my training in writing documents for approval through the government, writing affidavits was, became my expert ability, and that's something I've been working with these international groups for the last 3 years. And we've had successes, as I've said. We've had teachers, school board members step down. I've had my president step down in my high school, local high school. And this is regarded to the injections. And I've also had other successes where I've eliminated the temperature gun being used in my local hospital based on the emissions that come off the temperature gun. So, but I'm going to focus on the most critical win, because I think this is what I went through. I will share with you specifics on how to get you started. And in my presentation today, I will show you how I got my local laws changed and written to be protective for the local people in my own town. Okay, and our fight actually lasted a year and a half. It wasn't an overnight sensation. It wasn't just this, please don't do this, and they listen, and then everybody's happy. No, it took a year and a half to achieve our goals. So this is not something that's just, it wasn't easy. Okay, and I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. I'm just giving you a heads up that it's going to take perseverance, and do not give up. Okay, that's probably the best advice I can give anyone. When you're fighting this, do not give up. Okay, never let what the other person feels or says stop you from moving forward with your own agendas and following your own due process. Okay, they have their due process that they have to follow. You do too. You just keep at it. Don't mind what they say. If it's yay or nay. If it's yay, that's great. But if it's nay, you keep going. You keep moving forward your agenda and follow your due process and staying in honor. Okay, this is all part of the whole legal world of staying in honor so that you get what you want legally and lawfully in the end. And hopefully you'll achieve your goals much earlier than that. Okay, so we started fighting the city back in 2018. Middle of 2018, we did not achieve our goal until the beginning of 2020. And we concluded with a miracle. And our miracle was that the city ended up taking actually it was my words, because I was the only one who submitted draft ordinance changes to what the city was working on. So the city at that time were working on drafting revisions to the ordinance to include the small cell deployment, and they were changing the ordinance to make it industry friendly. And luckily, my group had stepped in the nick of time. And basically, since I was leading the group, I was the one submitting the language that I knew would be protective. And the language I was using was countering what the city attorney was writing. Okay, so there were definitely drafts that the attorney was submitting to the public for public review that was absolutely industry supportive. So I stepped in, and I've been working with my own drafts, and you can see it actually on my website, Lena's Fabulous Frequencies, under grassroots. It has all the letters that I've written, submitted to the city, and it's all on public record. Okay. So basically what we did at the local level, to kind of give you a framework of what we were tackling, and I think it's really important for you to understand the framework, is because when you do this, you're going to have to separate your goals into possibly more than one. Okay, if you're wanting to change the ordinance, that's one track. Now, if you're wanting to stop the deployment, that's another track. Okay, you don't want to mix the two, because those two actions are very, they're not similar at all. Because when you're working with the city on changing the local ordinance, wireless facilities, wireless telecommunications facilities, WTF, and the acronym your city uses may be different. It could be wireless communications facilities or even wireless facilities. Depending on your terms, you're going to want to focus on, if you want to change the ordinance, you want to focus just on the ordinance. Okay. And if you want to stop the deployment, then you want to focus on just that. So what we did at the local level is we took on both tasks simultaneously. It was a whole lot of work. And I never worked so hard in my life, dealing with people who were not really on our side. But it didn't matter. Like I said, doesn't matter how your city folks react, as long as you stay in honor and you keep writing those documents, you keep submitting those letters, you keep writing the cease and desist letters, the affidavits, filing those notices, if they're not willing to work with you, okay? If they are willing to work with you in changing the ordinance to make it protective to the people, then you're really on your way. I mean, you're jumping leaps and bounds ahead of the game. Okay, that's going to save you so much time. But just to give you a background of what I went through leading my group in Davis is that the first issue, we actually had to stop immediate deployments because we had over a dozen newly submitted permits that we found out that were waiting for permit approval by the industry. Okay, so we had to fight them. And basically we used several different strategies. And one, we went in, we just gathered intel in the very beginning. Okay, it's finding out all the information related to, have there been any submittals for new permits to small cells or cell towers. Okay, you're going to want to ask for both small cell antennas and cell towers. And depending on how big your county is, they may all be cell towers or they may all be small cells. So it doesn't, you don't know that until they tell you, okay, this is how many permits we've received. This is how many permits were actually in review. Okay, so the first step is really gathering the intel. Okay, so you're going to want to visit the planning department. That's where all the information comes from. Okay, and then when you do that, you can also ask for copies of the newly submitted permits, okay, and as well as the engineering plans for those currently proposed cell towers and small cell antennas. This is important to have just so that you know what kind of frequencies are being broadcasted, the wattage that's being put through them, et cetera, et cetera. And it also shows professionalism on your part, that you know what to ask for and that you will have in hand the same things that the cities will be reviewing. And what the cities will be reviewing, the public should have access to. Because so this is not something that should have to require an FOIA, a Freedom of Information Act. It should be something that they can just either download onto a solid state drive or a flash drive, and make it very simple for everybody. So you're going to make a lot of visits to the planning department. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. You're going to do that, as well as setting up meetings with your local planning commissioners. Okay, the people who have sworn an oath of office are the planning commissioners, as well as the city council members. You might want to, you'll definitely try to meet with your city attorney if you can at the same time. The city manager is also a good one. Okay, you'll want to set up meetings with the city manager and definitely the head planner. Okay, so there's generally these set folks within the city. You're going to want to maintain correspondence with them. Okay, it's very important that you maintain these relationships with them. And if you can't do this in person with meetings, then definitely do this through email. Also file for FOIAs on any correspondences, email correspondences, meetings between your city or county and the wireless industry. Okay, and this way it also adds more information into your intel gathering that will really give you a good foundation for how you approach your city. You don't want to come in blazing with the guns, firing away. That's not honorable. You want to stay in honor. You want to always try to have a meeting of the minds. Okay, this is part of the legal contract, is meeting of the minds. And that keeps you in good legal standing as well. Because let's say they're not on your side and they're countering everything you're doing, then later down the road, you will have a strong legal foundation and standing in any court situation because you followed your due process. You set an agenda to coordinate meetings with them. You desired to have a meeting of the minds. You had a desire to just correspond and communicate. You were active communicators, and you're actively communicating with all the key and correct players in the game all along. Okay, you want to make sure that you have this paper trail of email correspondences, relational correspondences, whether it's through meetings or public hearings and things like that. Okay, so you're just building your case. So one of the things that I discovered in my town was that they deliberately neglected their due process. Okay, they did not notice the public of the impending deployment of the 4G, 5G small cell antennas because they were under unlawful advice by the city lawyer, who was basically advising them to not say anything and to let these small cell antennas go under the radar and get approved and deployed without the public knowing. Okay, so when I stepped in, I actually stepped in the nick of time back in 2018, because when I asked about potential deployments of the 4G, 5G small cells, I was floored when I was told that there were many of them impending approval without the public even knowing. It did not even go through any public hearing whatsoever. No noticing radius whatsoever. So basically what I had to do was I had to bring the city back to square one. I had to bring them back through the planning phase and bring it through the planning commissioners before it can even be approved on and thrown onto the city council members' table for their approval. So what I've done was I also slow down the whole process. We did it through several means. I met with the mayor. I met with the city managers, the head planner, sent emails to everybody, and wrote cease and desist letters, had as many of the local people sign it as I could, and we sent it multiple times. It wasn't just one time. And after I called them out, we demanded that the project approval be followed. The city actually listened to us. So, but, I had to stay on top of them because they were still trying to be sneaky on a lot of things, preventing me from finding out a lot of the information that I was trying to gather. However, since I knew how to navigate and what the government duties are, I was able to draw out what they've neglected. And it was basically rules of procedure. Okay, all government projects have a set of rules of procedure that they must abide by. And mainly this is done to minimize risks of harm for everybody, both the city as well as the residents, the men and women of that town, both financial risks to the city, as well as environmental harm, and obviously physiological, biological harm to the people. So let's see, okay, so basically we made them take these permits back to the planning phase. Okay, that was number 1. 2, this is also really important, because they were trying to slide everything under the table. We made the city publicize these permits, proposals, and the revising of the wireless telecommunications facilities ordinance, and to conduct public hearings. Okay, this is really important. Public hearings for both. Public hearing is where the city legally opens up the project for public input. And this is when we were able, the public was actually able to come in and give testimony, flood them with scientific evidence of harm, flood them with failed due process, and just really put in our material evidence. We had up to 500 pages, okay, of things put into the record. We were we were upset enough that once we got the floodgates open, we were just piling on the evidence into the public records. So don't be afraid, don't be afraid to speak your truth. Don't be afraid to push. Don't be afraid to demand. Never ask. Okay, that is one thing I always tell people, is never ask. They work for you. These are your public servants. They may be called city leaders, but they are ultimately public servants because they swore an oath to you, not to the UN, not to WHO, not to UNESCO, not to the federal government, not to the state either. They swore their oath of office to protect the people of that county or the city. Very simple. And their job duty requires them to follow due process for any project submittals, that they're all followed consistently. Okay, it's nothing to do with the science, nothing to do with 5G science. Okay, as long as they follow their due process, you won't even need to get to the science. Science is last. Okay, don't use science as your crutch, because you have way more powers to use due process than science. In fact, if you look at my ordinance, all the language within my ordinance says nothing about the science, even though it's regarding wireless facilities. Yet it is still protective, but it gives no excuse based on science. It gives only information on setback limits, no protecting, sensitive habitat, and honoring the ADA compliance, all these things. So again, science is important, has its place, but that is definitely not your focus nor your crutch on getting your way. If you know this, then you are going to go far, okay? And the government people, they don't care about the science. They don't need the science. In fact, if they just follow due process, then you will be able to protect your city much effectively, okay, than if you only went in talking about the science. That is only one cog of the whole wheel of opportunities, a whole wheel of strategies, okay? You have a whole wheel of it. Don't just focus on one knob, okay? Okay, So the second issue is getting involved in the city's zoning law changes. And these are the changes that were accepted and made into local law by me as opposed to the draft versions that were submitted by the city attorney. And so what we did, and I'm only going to be listing some of the highlights, is that one, we were able to create setback rules. And this was listed under, quote unquote, in our ordinance called prohibited WFs. Okay, WF stands for wireless facilities. And under prohibited wireless facilities are setback rules of 500 feet from any home, residential area, including mixed use settings and existing or planned school site, both public and private. Okay, there's a lot of foresight in here, existing or planned school site. Okay, sensitive wildlife areas and historical resources. That's number one. Our city is so packed with so many homes rolling on top of each other. Basically, it negated the ability for any industry to come into place these small cells anywhere, or cell towers anywhere near these homes. It's one of those typical California homes where everyone's yards are like just each other's backyards. We're all sharing each other's yards, essentially. Okay, so number two is noticing radius of 500 feet for every residential living within any new antenna proposal. Okay, and then number three, public hearings on proposed wireless facilities shall be conducted. Okay, why do we have number three in there? It's because they didn't honor that the first round. So we put that into the law, public hearings. They must have public hearings. Okay, number four, regulatory compliance to state laws, to state environmental laws. And here in California, we have what is called the CEQA. Okay, it's called the California Environmental Quality Act. They have to be in compliance to that regulatory law, okay, the industry. And then number five, the enforcement of the ADA, Americans with Disabilities, and this would involve anyone with electrosensitivity. Isn't that great? And number six, this is also really important. RF emissions analysis must be required for any proposed WF. Okay, not only the radio frequency emissions off of the single tower, but also it is required to get an RF emissions analysis and cumulative impact report required for all existing towers and antennas within 1,300 feet of the proposed wireless facilities project site. Okay, so this is another additional, encompassing vision, of protection, that they must have not just the emission analysis of one tower, but the cumulative impact of whatever, towers that are within that vicinity that is within the proposed site. And post-project RF emissions, monitoring regularly and indefinitely by RF engineer hired by the city, not by the industry, but by the city. And the future monitoring report costs shall be at the expense and reimbursed by the permittee to the city. Okay, so all these things are put into place. Again, is it talking about science? No, not really. But these are put into place to really show industry we're not going to be pushovers. Okay, we're going to make rules and demands and follow-up demands. So once you put it in, we're going to continue having these things monitored. Okay, and then jurisdiction and authority to regulate lies under the control of the city's police power. Okay, that is a unique angle there. The jurisdiction is under police power. They have the power to control. In fact, because of this enables the police to ratchet things down if these towers become hazardous. Okay, it gives them the power of control. And last but not least, we were able to remove the city lawyer's inclusion of the FCC report and order and its requirements and their quote unquote master license agreement, the MLA. Okay, so this pretty much kind of encapsulates really quickly all the things that we were able, well, the highlights of the things we accomplished with our city. And I just wanted to share with you that it was a miracle. In the end result of what we gained from our 1.5 year fighting the city at all the levels was that we were blessed with a miracle and gifted with this powerful ordinance, one of the most powerful ordinance that protects the people of this town, of my town. And I'm just, very thankful to share even just a little bit of this to you. So the people of Yavapai, I wish you Godspeed, blessings, and hope and perseverance that good things will come to you. Thank you very much.